Hey young friends, Dr. Bill here. As always, I am glad that you've chosen to spend a little bit of time with me as we continue working our way through big names in the Bible. Today we're going to start taking a look at the book of Jonah, and we'll probably do several lessons from this wonderful little book. Now, the truth is, most of us, when we think about the book of Jonah, we get primarily interested or sidetracked by the story of the big fish that swallowed Jonah. We wonder if that's really something that happened, or we wonder if that's something that's truly possible. Well, interesting as that may be, the book is not primarily about Jonah and a big fish. That's only a part of the story. Now, the truth is, we don't know a whole lot about Jonah. Our best guess is that it was written sometime after the exile, after the people of Israel had returned from Babylon and gone back to their homeland after spending many, many years in captivity. And unlike other prophetic books, there are very few sayings in the book of Jonah. Instead, what we have is a short story. And it's by means of that story about Jonah that the prophetic message of God is conveyed. And as well, in this short story, it's interesting to note that Jonah is not the hero. Instead, he comes across as a negative example. And it seems that much of the book of Jonah is all about God saying, don't be like Jonah. Don't do what Jonah did. So keep that in mind as we work through the book for the next several weeks. Now here are some of the key themes we'll run into as we work through this wonderful little book. The first is this. The book of Jonah insists that God controls absolutely everything in all creation. God controls and runs the show. God is able to call Jonah a prophet, and he is able to compel Jonah to do what he wants, even though Jonah wants to have no part of it. And then, as well as we'll see in the book, living and non-living things. Well, God uses those to persuade Jonah to do what God wants Jonah to do. We'll see this certainly in the fish, but in a worm, also in a plant, and certainly the wind. All of those elements, all of those things, God controls and uses to convey the message that he wants Jonah to communicate. Secondly, as we'll see, this book tells a story about God being motivated primarily by compassion. God cares deeply for all people. At the end of the book of Jonah, this truth comes to light. Jonah has found refuge from the broiling sun underneath the shade cast by a rather large plant. Jonah enjoys being there, and it keeps him cool in the midst of all of the heat. But a worm gets into that plant, and the plant dies, and suddenly Jonah is without the shade he enjoyed. Jonah grieves bitterly over the loss of this plant. I mean, he sees this as one of the most terrible things that could happen. Well, God uses that to communicate a message to Jonah. God, in essence, says, if you have that much compassion for a plant, then can you imagine how much compassion I have for all people? If you grieve over a plant, can you imagine how much I grieve over people? God has compassion. That's very much at the heart of the story. And then, as we will see, God's compassion extends to all people, not just to the Hebrew people. This is in essence what the story is all about. It illustrates the fact that yes, God cares for His chosen people. God has compassion on them. But as well, God has tremendous compassion for all people, even foreigners, even the people who once held the Israelites in captivity. God is concerned about getting others, everyone, to respond to Him and to receive His overtures of mercy and kindness. We'll run into these themes as we work through the book, and I would encourage you, if you have a few minutes, to sit down and read it. It's not a very long book, and you'll be fascinated by what you find there. Well, as always, I'm glad you chose to join me, and should you have any questions, you know how to get in touch with me. Email, phone call, text, you name it. I'll be happy to respond. I know school has gotten started for you all, and so I wish that you have a great beginning to this new school year, and I wish you God's very best. Take care. Thanks for joining me. Bye-bye.